Welcome back to another episode of the Downsizing Roadmap podcast with your hosts, Jody Roscoe and Heather Fisher. We're talking about all things downsizing, from our own experiences with clients to guest experts. Let's make downsizing easier, one conversation at a time. Hey, welcome to Downsizing Roadmap. This is Jody Roscoe.
And Heather Fisher.
And we are talking about what every adult child needs to know.
To help their parents.
Yep.
Yeah.
Adult children, we are you.
Yes.
We feel you.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we thought it would be good to just kind of have a conversation about how hard that is and what, how you can help really, because I think I know I was seriously lost in the process. I really was. And I know so much more now that I wish I could have implemented then. So our goal here today is to have you understand some of those things maybe. And so have your adult kids listen to this, or if you are the adult kid, we're so glad you're here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I am in the midst of it the last few years with my parents, and so learning a lot. It's challenging, it's hard, but there's ways to make it easier, and there's ways to really help your parents and grow closer to them and learn a lot about them. And so we'll talk about lots of ways to maybe take a little of the tension and stress out of the process and just get through it, and some tips for all of us adult kids that didn't maybe realize this was coming down the road, and then we all face it as we help our parents.
And I think the stress of it can really cause fractures in the family. We've seen that a lot, and so maybe give you some ideas on how to help that for yourself and for your parents.
Yeah, and I think sometimes getting some outside resources so that you as the adult children can enjoy your family and your parents for that relationship, instead of changing that dynamic and bringing friction in with the to-do lists and the questions and challenges and all of that. So let's dive in and maybe talk about some tips and best ways to handle things. I think, like we said, suddenly you can find yourself in a role of doing so many things that you weren't planning on doing, being a coordinator and an appointment setter and a cleaner and a mover and what else?
The manager just of all things.
Financial manager.
Yeah.
A lot of things.
Yeah. And I think, so there's so much that goes into just that role being thrust upon you. Some people are happy to take that on and they're ready to go. Some people are like, wait, what's happening? You know, and I think sometimes our parents will do a great job of hiding from us how, if they're having difficulty.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to be a bother, all of those concerns that they have where they are feeling like they don't want to impose on your life at all. And so there's so many dynamics, emotional dynamics that go with it, let alone the actual time that it takes to do all the things that you have to do while you're still living your entire life, probably still working, probably still with your kids, this whole sandwich generation thing that is crazy hard.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not something, thrust upon you where your parents say, we're ready, but it may be signs that you're seeing looking in on your parents' life, and you go to visit for the holidays or you're over there and you just see things changing, and sometimes it starts with just difficult conversations. So we can maybe talk about some tips on that. It can be challenging if one person is saying, hey, this might be something we need to start thinking about, and your parents are saying, I don't see what the problem is. We're fine. I'm fine. I'm fine.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
Yes.
And so I think we see both sides of that. We see sometimes when the parents are like, hey, we're fine. I don't know what the problem is. And the kids are like, oh my gosh, they're not fine. It feels like they're, maybe forgetting to pay bills, or for, not being able to really take care of the house as well as they used to, or, seeing those signs.
Concerns about falls or health concerns, being at home alone, or just the two of the spouses with no one to help.
And then we see the other side where the parents are like, oh my gosh, we got to get rid of this big house. Like, we're ready to go. And the kids are like, wait, no, you can't
That's
sell.
where I grew up.
Yeah, you can't sell the family home.
Where will I store all of my bins that I haven't looked at in 20
All my
years?
high school stuff that I haven't taken away.
Right.
Right. So we kind of do see both sides of those, you
Yeah.
know, somebody's ready and somebody isn't.
Yeah, reality check for all you adult children out there. If it's your stuff that's filling up the house,
Get it out.
time to move it. Yes.
Yeah, don't add to all the things.
Yes.
But,
Start with easy, your stuff.
yeah. What can we clean out of the house? Your own things. That's
So we're done for the day, right?
Yeah,
That's it.
done. That's a tip.
it.
No, but I do think it's an interesting. So whatever the dynamic looks like, whether you as the adult child are like, oh my gosh, mom and dad need to start thinking about this, or whether mom and dad are thinking about it, and you're the one that's like, wait, hold on, I'm not ready for that. Both of those are hard and emotional.
Yeah. I think that if you're coming at it from a perspective that you are feeling like you need to have a difficult conversation with your parents and you're getting the we're fine, the best way to approach that is with loving questions.
Yeah.
I think the minute that you start with, you need to do this, you're
Yeah.
going to have, the most pushback. It's your parents, and no one wants to be told what they have to do or feel like something's happening. So I think you can start with some just guided questions of, what do the next few years look like? Have you given any thought to, whether you're planning to be here, or if you have a desire to go somewhere else? And, there might be a lot of information that they just haven't said to you either, that you can get out with good, loving questions versus a plan that, your parents haven't had a part of making on their own or with you. So
I
would
think
definitely
that
start there.
one of the mistakes that adult children make sometimes is when they see those signs, their instinct is to just kind of kick into the anxiety of like, oh my gosh, this needs to be dealt with. Like, we need to handle this, and kind of to take over a little bit. And I get that because I did that, so I feel you to my core. And my mom was one of those ones that was like, I'm fine, it's not a problem. And so you just have to tread lightly on that, because her thought process was that she didn't want me to be that parent figure. She's my mom, and she wants to be the mom.
Yeah.
And so that switch over of me trying to help her in things that she couldn't do anymore, and she would get mad at me about that. It was just really, really tough. And so navigating that with that thought process in your head that they don't want you to necessarily turn around and be their parent, but they might need you to be their partner through it, and just kind of a listener, really a listener, a strength, and allowing you to do some of the things that they need you to do, but with grace and kind of honor.
I think we've talked about given this advice to some people in our classes, but I think one thing that really helps is to have a neutral third party delivering some of the information that may be harder to hear. So on whichever hurdle you're dealing with, if you as the adult child can be the partner, like you said, to go meet with someone else with your parents, whether that's a senior living community, or if you're dealing with the stuff and it's meeting with the estate sale person, or having a realtor out to talk about things. If you can just be that partner and make the time in your schedule to go and not make it rushed, and maybe be that person to go over the information again if it's a lot. If your parents are open to you being there, sometimes letting a third party say the difficult pieces of the information is much easier than just trying to be the authority on it and tell your parents. So highly advise, whether it's reaching out to us and getting those resources to call, or reaching out to whatever those hurdles are, getting that third party to deliver the information, and just being supportive and helping with the follow-up of whatever needs done can really go a long way, versus you saying your stuff's not worth anything, or you have to go here, and making those decisions without that support.
Yeah, I fully agree. You don't need to be the bad guy. You can let somebody else be the bad guy, even if you know that that's what's the case. Just maybe let somebody else deliver that. And also just self-discovery is always better, right? So if they think that, something is worth thousands of dollars, look it up on eBay, but look it up by going, oh, let's see. Not like it is not, let me show you, right? Like, so the way that you deliver it, I think, can help, right? And so, oh, let's see. And so when you find ones that are all, worth $100 instead of $1,000, they can self-discover, like, oh yeah, I see, you're right, it just isn't that. So I think that sometimes we forget in that it's very anxiety, there's so much anxiety and fear and sadness and all kinds of things around it, depending on what's happening. If it's just like if they're making a move, that's great. But if they have some health issues or something else is going on, then that adds another layer in there. And so we end up, acting from those places instead of places of maybe compassion and willing, patience to take that time and find the right answers.
I think if you're, getting through any piece of this process, but I think we see it most often when people are going to help with the stuff, don't do a surprise clean out. Don't.
Everybody's going to be here this weekend, Mom. We're going to get rid of all the things.
Yeah, don't do that and bulldoze through the process. Make sure that you're taking it at a pace. I mean, clearly, sometimes there's timelines that move things quicker. But if you're just trying to get, your feet wet into this process and move towards a different situation, make it enjoyable. Like, hey, Mom, could I come over for lunch? Bring lunch. Can I come over? And could we go through the hall closet? Start with a small, defined project. Make it enjoyable. Bring some food, don't add a burden onto that, and just enjoy that time, get it done, and then move on, till the next time. And don't just be like, I have the energy to clean your entire house, and, recognize that decision fatigue for your parents as well, because yours might be, you don't have the same emotional attachment. So you're ready to keep throwing things in the dumpster and, learn to recognize when enough is enough for one day, for sure, and don't bulldoze through it.
For most people, that's like 2 to 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, they just kind of get overwhelmed and they start keeping things that they don't need to keep. I think you'll find that even if you're cleaning out your own clothes closet or your own house, just in the regular way of cleaning things and moving things out. If you're not doing that, start doing that. That's where we get in. That's where we get into all this stuff, anyways, in the first place. But in your regular clean out of your closet or whatever, you get tired, and then you just end up just keeping things that you might not even want to. So your parents will do that too, and they'll start. If you feel like they're starting to keep things like a little bit irrationally, or like, oh my gosh, why would they even want that gum wrapper? Then it's time to stop for the day. And I think that the thing is that we've talked about in other podcasts is that the stuff is really just stuff. It's the memories around the stuff that matters. And so it's not that your parents are so against letting go of the stuff. They're against letting go of those memories, or concerned about that those memories will be gone, or that they, will feel adrift without the things that anchor them to those memories. And so when you tell the stories around those things, and now they've passed that story on to you, and if you can just quietly listen and enjoy learning about their life or their past or whatever that is, then they can let those things go easier because now that story has been passed on. And so
I think that as adult kids too, we will be surprised on how much we gain from hearing those stories. I know you've mentioned you wish you had more stories when you lost your mom and your grandma so close together, and stories from that side of the family were lost. And I know I've treasured, stories I've gotten from my mom the last few years when, we did a memory book and all of that. And it's really enjoyable when you can learn about your parents' life outside of you and how it relates to you and all of that. So don't speed past those things that will be of value to you, to have those memories and those stories, and the memory of a pleasant afternoon spent with dedicated time with your parents learning about their life can be worth so much more than how much you got into the dumpster. And just do that. So I think too, if you are, have a little bit more time and you're just helping them slowly, that there are some things that we'll call it homework for the adult kids, but there are some things that you can probably do a lot easier and faster than your parents, like scanning photos or sorting piles of paperwork into categories, not necessarily making the decisions on things, but if you have any, more technology sense than your parents or whatever, volunteer to take a box of photos and scan them and load them all onto
a digital
the digital photo frame, and then return that with the box and say, now are you ready to let go of some of these? But have it be a finished, don't drop off a digital photo frame and say, this is what you should do. That's just hard. And, so take on some of those projects that you can do at your own house on your own time and bring it back as a gift, or, just have it be done. Don't necessarily set yourself up for trying to teach that technology to your parents or expect them to do it and be frustrated when it doesn't happen. I think you can do some of it.
And for photos, if you don't have the time or technology to do that, we have people who can do that. And so you can take that project on by taking it, having somebody do that, getting it back to them, just managing the project. So either way, doing it yourself or managing that project, but taking little pieces and doing that. So
I think as for me personally, for many, many, many years, you would get to a point with your parents when birthdays and Christmases come up and you don't know, like, what else am I going to get them? They have everything they need and all of that, that definitely looking down the road to little service things like that you can gift, a house cleaner, a session with a house cleaner, or a home organizer. We know some wonderful people who could help with some of the sorting and things like that. And those are wonderful things to give as a gift if you're just,
they
unsure. They don't need another sweater. They don't need another,
Right.
whatever. So think outside the box a little bit on what you can maybe provide that they might not spend for themselves, if that's an option for you, that you have the resources but maybe not as much time available with your schedule that you could share.
Yeah. I think the key too is when you're doing that, when you're going through things with your parents and they say they want to keep it, then try to pull out what the story is about it, right? So not like, oh my gosh, this is junk, like you don't need to keep it, which is what, I might think in my mind when I'm looking at something that they're holding. And not everything was. I mean, my mom had some beautiful things, but why, why did they want, and then give yourself that gift of the time to listen to the story about that thing. And sometimes they won't be able to have a story. They don't know why they're keeping it. And so that's also that self-realization, or like coming to that, to themselves. If they don't have a good story around it, then they're like, oh yeah, I guess I don't
Really
need that thing. So, and sometimes you really learn interesting things about your parents or whoever it is that you're helping with this process, like really interesting things about their lives that you don't know and that art item brought up for them.
Yeah. I think, like I said, we had, we gave my mom like a memory book as a gift, and it's such a different experience to hear, about things.
What do you mean a memory book?
We used a company. I mean, there's many of them out there where it gave like question prompts. So, I mean, there's the one we did, she got an email with question prompts.
Yeah.
And there are books you can buy that have question prompts and you just write on the pages. Or you can just, use a blank journal and ask the questions or, have them write about different things. But what I learned the most was about things from my mom's perspective from either before I was born, her own childhood and relationship with my grandparents, or her life as a teenager, or, she and my dad's life and connection before any of us kids were born. And that's, super interesting and things that I would never, if it wasn't asked there, I don't sit around when I call her on the phone, just to check in.
What was life like when you were 6?
Yeah. And so it's a lot of questions that you don't think to ask because as an adult, you're mainly talking with your parents about the logistics of things,
right.
Either what's going on with your own kids, how was doctor's appointments? What time are you coming for Christmas dinner?
Yeah. What am I assigned for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, all of those things. And you don't really dive deep into their stories.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend any kind of a book or a service that does that, because those stories can come out and you will treasure that. But I think it is the stories. And
yeah, and I think having those prompts, I mean, honestly, that would be an amazing gift. I wish my mom would have just done that for me. I didn't give it to her, but I wish she would have just done that for me as a gift. So if you're thinking about gifts for your kids,
yeah.
That would be a great thing. Sign yourself up for that, or get one of those places that send
Yeah.
you emails, or get a book and just write your stories. Or if you really love cooking, write your recipes, or whatever that is that you feel like is the essence of you, of that legacy that you want to leave. Put that down somewhere so that is the gift to me.
Yeah.
And some of the things are amazing, but your kids aren't going to be able to keep all the things. And as the kids, we know you don't want all the things.
Yeah.
But you do want to know your parents better. I think everybody, would like to know those unknown stories that every once in a while, Mark and I will be talking and we'll tell a story to the kids, just something that happened. They're like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, and it's just like, that's, first of all, they never thought we, had a life before they were born.
Of course not.
So
Day one, you arrived.
Right.
Yeah.
And it must have been so boring before them.
Yes.
We did nothing. But I love that, to be able to surprise them sometimes about like, wait, you've been where, or you've done what? And so if you can learn that about your parents, and so I think what we're trying to say today is start that process really early. Even if your parents aren't thinking about moving yet, then start the process of going through some of their things, helping them get that stuff in order so that it's not something that's weighing on them, but also it can be an amazing experience for all of you. And if you have the time to do it, because when you get into a crisis situation, you don't have time to listen to the stories. And that's kind of where I got to the place where nobody had time for that and energy for that. And so we missed out on that part. So if you start early, even if there's nothing wrong, even if you're just, way out, they're thinking about downsizing to a condo, or, they just, whatever, help them go through their stuff if they want you to, and find out the stories of their life, because I think that is a gift that you'll always remember.
I think too, if you're doing that, if you are doing it for yourself, or you're the kid and you're doing that, anytime you can kind of tuck a note or a sticker or something along with the things that are important, there are things my mom's told me about, and then I'm like, shoot, I forgot. So when someone's telling you those stories, make note of, oh, that china set came from this person, and how are they related to me in the family tree, and make note of that, because if that story's gone,
it's just china.
It's just gone, and you don't know. So I know I'm thankful my mom went through jewelry from different parts of our family, and she has it all labeled as to whose it was, and why she has it, and I learned new things about pieces that I'd seen for years but didn't know, and I'm thankful that I know that that's there and it's labeled, and I don't have to remember all of it in the moment.
Yeah. So if family dynamics can also be, a little crazy with siblings, because I was an only child, which is a different problem because, you don't have anybody to bounce stuff off of, but siblings, you have brothers and sisters, and
yeah.
We've seen in many of the people that we've worked with, sometimes they're all on the same page, and that's amazing, and sometimes they're not on the same page at all. And so try to minimize whatever that looks like. I don't know, maybe because you have brothers and sisters, you can talk about it easier, but that's hard. That's hard for the parents to have everybody to be on a different page. It's hard for everybody to be on a different page.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of families out there with lots of dynamics, and, family will always be difficult for, people in different ways. But I think if you just have, that end game in mind, is that everybody trying to do the best for the parents, that if you can hold your patience, and I think it always shakes out just different roles. So it's never going to be completely divided, because different siblings have different amounts of time or proximity to where their parents live, or different skill sets, or different
levels of patience,
or their own family dynamic as far as the age of their kids or not. And so as long as you guys can all keep that end goal in mind, like what's best for mom and dad, and keep that patience not only with your parents but with your siblings, if that's everybody's outlook, then it can work out really well, that everybody's strengths can play into how the whole situation goes, and everybody can contribute in the ways that they're able to, and it can be much more successful. So if that's friction is popping up, try to diffuse that, because in the end, we all want the best for our parents, and in doing that. So, I think, again, that comes back to sometimes a third party to help with a strategy, and who can help is a good plan at that point too, to try to talk to everybody together from that third party perspective on, like, hey, here's the plan, here's the timeline, how can we work this out logistically?
Yeah, and I think just like people who are doing it themselves, I think that the kids always also fall into, not always, but most of the time fall into a let's deal with the stuff first, and really what we need to do is get dreamy first about what the future is going to look like, and kind of just sit down and have a conversation as a family about what mom and dad want their future to look like, and what they want to be able to be doing with their time, and what area they want to live in, and all of those things, and really start with that as a family to talk about what the goal is, so that when everybody's working on it, everybody is working towards that same goal of getting mom and dad where we want to go. But sometimes if we just start in with, oh my gosh, all this stuff has to go, because I get that, I get that. But that's really not the best place to start. The best place to start is
always at the beginning.
Just at the beginning. Where are we going? What's next? And kind of getting that whole plan together, so that then the stuff makes more sense. What can you take? How much stuff can you take? How much stuff do you need to let go of? And who does the family need to take some of this stuff, or do they want it, or is it time to let it go now, or mom and dad are going to take it to the next place? And then the next place is the one where we have to let that stuff go. So if you don't know where you're going, it's really hard to make those decisions around the stuff even. So start with the good conversation of where you're going and what the budget looks like and, all of those things.
And the timeline, I think when you can define that a little more, maybe not specifically to a day but okay, we're looking at this happening in the next year, or this needs to happen sooner than that, or this is our 5-year goal. When you know that timeline, it's much easier to divide the strategy up into chunks and go, we just need to accomplish getting these questions answered this month, or we need to get on a waiting list, or we need to, we have 3 months to get through cleaning out the house. And it's much easier when there's a defined time range of what you're looking at for that plan to come to fruition.
Yeah, because if you're moving, you don't sell the house tomorrow. You have to get through the process of getting your things together and, looking for houses and, doing that. And if you're going to maybe an independent living, there are definitely ones who have waiting lists. And so you want to get out there and look at what that looks like and decide if that's what's for you. And what would that be? Is it someplace that's really social? Is it someplace that's just kind of more independent? Like, what does that look like? And what are those things? Or is it a condo complex? Is it a single family home that's just smaller? What is it that you're looking for? And so
And don't forget to ask that question of your parents. If you're the adult child, just don't jump in and start, Google researching and come up with, here's the place. Start with that question of, what do you want your next home to feel like? There may be, amenities or pieces that are really important, or a location that's close to, where they currently live, or church, or things like that would make life easier and more enjoyable. So,
or close to the beach, or close to the mountains, or whatever, something totally different than what they have right now.
Absolutely. So make sure that you're asking the questions and listening with patience to the answers, and then you can come up with the best strategy that's realistic for that dream that fits all the pieces. But don't start without that dream and just come up with a plan. Then it's happening to somebody and not what they chose. So,
and if you're feeling like your parents really need to be doing it and they're really not ready to be doing it, I think what you can do is just ask to be able to come over and help them, sort through some things and just kind of get those things moving without saying, okay, but you're moving. Just, nope.
Ease down the road.
Yeah, ease down the road of whatever. And if they ask you to take things, sometimes you just take them and
drive straight to the donation place on your way
don't
home.
Listen, parents. But it just depends. Sometimes the path of least resistance is better for your relationship. Even if you know that that's what's right and what needs to happen, sometimes taking that path of least resistance for a little while, while still, helping them move forward in ways, again, listening to their stories and doing that kind of stuff.
And celebrate the small wins. Don't immediately end one small project with, well, it's going to take forever if we go at this pace. Celebrate what you did get done or what they did. If they, next time you talk to them, say, I cleaned out this or that, or I went through that box. Just celebrate that, and that's enough for that day. Don't steamroll it with, well, that's not enough. It's not fast enough.
Which is honestly how I felt so often. And so I'm just trying to give you that bird, like from behind, like, when you look back and you see what it looks like, it felt like, oh my gosh, let's just get on with it. And I think that we're, all living in a place in our life where things are moving fast and the kids are doing things and everything's moving fast. And we forget that they're living in a kind of different time time zone,
Yeah.
or zone's not the right word, but their time is different than ours. Like it's a slower paced life. It's not like ours. And so we kind of come in like steamrollers because we're just going to get that stuff done. Like, right. We got to get to soccer. We got to get to whatever. We got to get dinner on the table, and I have 2 hours to do this, Mom. And you just like, I got to get this done. And they're just like, whoa, and so it's, our lives are in different places. And sometimes we have to step back and go slower with them. And I get that that's hard, but that's what needs to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Doing it the other way is the quickest way to not ever be invited back to go through anything again, because it will feel very startling and abrupt to the person. Yeah, you can't, as much as you want to, and that their taxes from 1972 are not anything that they need, you can't go take them, without their, being okay with it. So. Yeah. And I think that it's okay to be honest as well when it's hard on you.
Yeah.
It's okay to say no sometimes, like, no, I can't come this weekend to help, or, no, this is too much on my plate right now. As long as you're figuring out a way to help how you can and when you can, it's okay to be honest that it's emotionally hard on, us as adult children too, and it's hard on schedules or time or whatever. So if you're feeling like it's very hard, that's definitely the time to call in some outside resources if you can, because that's what we are here for, and so many service providers are here to help with that load. But you have to recognize when that's okay to call in reinforcements and make it easier. And it's okay to be honest and not just completely run yourself ragged with care needs or, getting through the process.
Yeah, and if your parents have the resistance, then find some people that can help them, because sometimes that resistance is just not knowing. Like, it's just the unknown, and it feels scary because they don't know what's next, and they don't know how they're going to possibly get there without help. And so finding those third-party people and just being there to listen can help. If you're the one who's being resistant, really think about that, because I get it that it was the family house and all of that. My mom and grandma lived in that house since 1964. That was the house we had Christmases in and all of the things. But what you genuinely, what you want is what's best for them. And so sometimes you have to take a step back and think, hey, oh my gosh, that seems crazy that we won't ever have Christmas there again. But life moves on and things change, and that's what needs to happen. So sometimes you have to be the one that steps back and is like, oh, Mom and Dad are ready to do this? Okay, take a step back, internalize that, get ready to deal with that, and then help them move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our parents do so much for us that it's a gift to be able to help them when it's time to do that.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we get that it's an emotional time for everybody. Reach out. We have a lot of vendors and people that can be those third-party help for you on downsizingroadmap.com.
Yeah, and keep listening to other episodes. We've got a lot of information, hopefully in an easy to understand and take away some tips that you can pass that on to your parents and just be a help and not be overwhelmed yourself with all the information. So, awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Well, stay tuned for our next episode. Thanks for joining us today, and
good luck.
Let us know what we can help with.
Good luck with it all.
Yes.
It'll all come together. I will say that. It'll all come together. So
absolutely.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on the Downsizing Roadmap podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might need a little downsizing inspiration. Have questions or ideas for future episodes? Reach out to us on our website, www.downsizingroadmap.com. Until next time, let's keep simplifying and moving forward.